At the dawn of a new era forced upon the world by the Russian Federation's war in Ukraine, member states must now take sides and choose between peace and aggression. Delegates said today as the General Assembly moved into the second day of its emergency special session. Noting that a draft resolution on which this meeting is based refers to the twin objectives of maintaining international peace and security and developing friendly relations among states, underscored that all efforts must be deployed to realize the same. She urged all parties to exercise restraint and pursue peaceful diplomatic means to resolve the conflict. Qatari foreign policy is based on the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations, namely refraining from the threat or use of force against the political independence and territorial integrity of states. As such, she emphasized the territorial integrity and unity of Ukraine within its recognized borders. The present crisis must be settled by pursuing negotiation within the ambit of international law and the Charter to satisfy the concerns of all parties. She went on to call on all parties to fulfill their obligations under international humanitarian law and secure the safe, unhindered deployment of humanitarian assistance.
The United Nations is making the protection of civilians, and its priority will intensify its humanitarian operations in and around Ukraine. The United Nations needs safe and unhindered access to all areas affected by the Russian military offensive. There is an urgent need to establish a safe passage for life-saving medical supplies and health personnel. The UN's head of political affairs warned the Security Council on Friday, 11th of March, that direct attacks on civilians and civilian objects are prohibited under international law and may amount to war crimes. According to the Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights, as of 26 of September, 14,844 civilian casualties were recorded, including 5,996 deaths. The actual figure could be significantly higher as reported victims are confirmed. 10 of millions of people are in potential danger of death.
On March 1, the United Nations and its humanitarian partners launched coordinated emergency appeals totaling of $1.7 billion to provide emergency humanitarian assistance to people in Ukraine and refugees in neighboring countries. And as of April 25, this appeal was 70% funded. And on April 26, facing a worsening crisis in Ukraine, the UN doubles its emergency appeal to $2.24 billion. To date, the flash appeal is 86% funded. The United Nations and its partners have provided more than 8.1 million people with humanitarian assistance and protection since the beginning of the war. To date, more than 6.7 million people have received food aid and nearly 1.7 million have received cash assistance. The United Nations and its humanitarian partners are seeking an additional $226 million to prepare for the arrival of winter in Ukraine. These funds will enable humanitarian agencies to begin critical procurement, distribution, and repair activities. The aim is to provide assistance to 1.7 million people before the year of 2022-2023, the winter season. So across Ukraine, over 580 humanitarian partners have provided life-critical aid and protection services to 13.3 million people by the date of September 14.
The UN Security Council adopted a statement on May 6, 2022 in which it strongly supports the Secretary General's efforts to achieve a peaceful solution in Ukraine. The Secretary General welcomed the fact that for the first time, the Security Council is speaking with one voice for peace in Ukraine. On May 12, the Human Rights Council approved a resolution at a special session on Ukraine calling for an investigation into the atrocities alleged against Russian occupation troops. On June 21st, the UN Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, Wairimu Indritu, briefed the Security Council on Tuesday and reinforced concerns over the heightened risk of sexual violence and trafficking which are significantly impacting women and children. The United Nations Coordinator for Ukraine estimated on 100th day of the Russian invasion of Ukraine that the war will have no winner. On June 28th, the UN Political and Peacebuilding Chief, Rosemary DiCarlo, told the Security Council that the horrific conflict in Ukraine shows no signs of abating. She pointed out that since her last update on April 5th, countless Ukrainian civilians have been killed in indiscriminate attacks, cities and towns leveled, and much of the country's arable.